The first of our fundamental causes of prosperity is geography. When we look at this map showing the differences in GDP per capita around the world, there's something noticeable about their location. Countries which are closer to the equator tend to have lower average incomes. The climates in these countries are hotter, which might make factory work required for industrialization more difficult to transition to. In many of these countries, there are also fewer navigable waterways for trade. But luckily, modern advances like air travel and air conditioning are beginning to mitigate those factors. Nevertheless, geographical differences may also help us explain why quote-unquote Western civilization, or the nations of Western Europe, were the ones to colonize the globe and stumbled upon industrialization. The geographer and historian Jared Diamond frames it this way in his classic 1997 book, Guns, Germs, and Steel. In 1532, a small Spanish force of about 100 men and 60 horses, led by Francisco Pizarro, massacred thousands of the Inca people in the great plaza of Cajamarca and captured the Inca ruler Atahualpa, defeating an army of 80,000 soldiers. How is this possible? Why did this happen? What was so special about the Europeans that when they showed up on the shores of the rest of the world, the people who greeted them stood no chance against their weaponry and disease? The case Diamond lays out is that the geography of Eurasia bestowed upon the Europeans a sequence of advantages. First, Diamond notes that not all regions have animals which can be domesticated. Sheep, goats, cows, pigs, and horses are really the only major domesticable animals in the world, which help grow human civilization. There are some more, like camels, llamas, and buffalo, but among the viable candidates, only one, the llama, was indigenous to a region other than Eurasia. There are no animals indigenous to Africa which can be domesticated. Romans like Mark Antony, in defiance of the wisdom of the Africans, tried and failed to domesticate lions and zebras. Without domesticable animals, farming is much, much harder. The available plants, which would be domesticated, also differed greatly by region. Wheat is native to the Fertile Crescent, and rice is native to China. Add to those corn, barley, and sorghum, and you have all the major cereal crops. Only corn is native to the Americas. The rest were all native to Eurasia. And corn took a very long time to develop into what we know today. Originally, corn looked like those little baby corns you get sometimes, and it was barely edible. It took centuries for the indigenous people of the Americas to cultivate the crop. Domesticable animals and crops make it easier to build your civilization and grow your population. In that respect, the peoples of Eurasia had significant geographic advantages, which set them centuries ahead of the peoples in Africa, the Americas, or the islands of the Pacific. Beyond the advantages of resources, Eurasia also had an advantageous shape. Because the Earth rotates along an axis, climates at similar latitudes tend to be similar. A continent like Africa spans more lines of latitude than lines of longitude, or said simply, it's tall, not wide. That means that climates on the African continent are very different. That makes it difficult for ideas about agriculture to spread. What improves farming yields in Egypt won't work in Uganda or Madagascar. However, the continental axis of Eurasia runs across, not up and down. The climates of France and Germany do not differ much, and so advances and ideas are easily adapted between different groups of people on the continent. By making it easier to spread ideas, advancement was faster. Still, Europeans might not have succeeded in their conquest of the Americas and other places if it were not for germs. These diseases all came from animals in Eurasia, and Europeans had developed immunity towards them over the centuries. In 1520, it took just one sick person to bring smallpox to South America, where it may have killed 90% of the indigenous population. The same story played out later in North America. John Winthrop, the governor of Massachusetts way back when, wrote about how it was clear that God had sided with the Europeans and sent the plague to the native peoples to wipe them out. Indeed, unaware of the advantages their geography had granted them, Europeans tended towards racist explanations of their success. But the truth really is that Europeans inhabited a part of the globe which made progress just a little bit easier than everywhere else. And we must continue to be wary of racist explanations for the differences we still see today. Some places simply have bigger hurdles to jump when it comes to economic growth.